There's a fault off the coast of the Pacific Northwest that scientists genuinely believe is capable of destroying the region. Not damaging it, not disrupting it, destroying it, reshaping the coastline, flattening buildings across multiple states and a Canadian province, and killing potentially thousands of people in a matter of minutes. It is called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and it is one of the most dangerous faults on the entire planet. And it is not sitting still. Deep beneath the ocean floor, this fault is constantly, silently moving and loading, quietly ratcheting up the stress on its locked, jammed section, building relentlessly toward the day it finally releases in what people simply call the big one. So today, we are going to answer the single most important question about this giant. Not if it will happen, but what to expect when it does, what the shaking will be like, what the tsunami will do, how much warning you will get, and how you and the people you love can actually survive it. Because this earthquake is not a possibility, it is a certainty. A geological event that is coming, and the only question is whether we will be ready when it arrives. I am going to give it to you straight, the way I always do. The real science, the honest stakes, and the genuine uncertainty, because understanding this properly is what transforms fear into preparation, and preparation is what saves lives. This is not a video designed to terrify you into hopelessness. Quite the opposite. It is a video designed to make you one of the people who understands exactly what is coming, and exactly what to do. Because the difference between the people who survive the big one and the people who do not will come down, in large part, to what they knew and what they had prepared beforehand. So stay with me. This is genuinely important. Let us get into it. But before we do me one quick favor, because it genuinely helps this channel, and I rate every single one. Drop a comment right now and tell me, are you in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Northern California? And be honest with me. Do you have an emergency plan and supplies ready? Or is the big one something you have heard about but never actually prepared for? I want to know. And if you want to be the first to know the moment the ground moves anywhere along this coast or on the Ring of Fire, subscribe right now. It is completely free. Hit that like button too. Let us push for 5,000 likes on this one so the algorithm gets it in front of the people along this coastline who need to see it. All right, let us get into it. First, let me explain what this fault is and why it is capable of such destruction. Running along the Pacific Northwest coast, offshore there is a colossal boundary where two of the Earth's tectonic plates meet. A slab of oceanic crust, called the Juan de Fuca Plate, is being slowly forced beneath the massive North American plate, a process called subduction. This creates what is known as a megathrust fault, and megathrust faults are the only faults on Earth capable of producing the very largest earthquakes there are, magnitude 9 and above. These are the same kind of faults that unleashed the catastrophic disasters in Sumatra in 2004, which killed more than 200,000 people, and in Japan in 2011, which killed nearly 20,000 and triggered the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. Cascadia is a fault of exactly that class, stretching roughly 1,000 kilometers from the northern tip of Vancouver Island, past Seattle and Portland, down to Northern California. And it sits right off one of the most beautiful and increasingly populated coastlines in North America. And I want you to really sit with those comparisons to Sumatra and Japan, because they are not hyperbole. They are the closest real-world previews we have of what Cascadia can do. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake was a megathrust rupture that generated tsunamis which killed more than 200,000 people across a dozen countries, many of whom had no idea a wave was coming. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake in Japan was a magnitude 9, one megathrust event that struck one of the most earthquake-prepared nations on Earth. And even there, with world-class defenses, the tsunami overwhelmed seawalls, swept miles inland, killed nearly 20,000 people, and caused a nuclear catastrophe. Those were not freak events. They were subduction zones doing exactly what subduction zones do. And Cascadia is the same kind of fault, capable of the same kind of earthquake, sitting off a coastline that is far less accustomed to this threat than Japan is. That is why scientists study it with such urgency, and why the phrase, the big one, carries such weight in the Pacific Northwest. Here is how the danger builds. Along the shallower part of this fault, down to about 30 kilometers deep, the two plates are locked together by friction, jammed tight, unable to slip. But the plates never stop trying to move. The Juan de Fuca plate keeps pushing, relentlessly, and because the locked fault cannot release that motion, the strain builds up, stored as elastic energy in the rock, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. And here is the crucial part. This fault last released that energy in a great earthquake on the night of January 26th in the year 1700. We know the date with stunning precision because the tsunami it generated raced across the Pacific and struck Japan about 10 hours later, where scribes recorded a mysterious wave with no local earthquake to explain it. an orphan tsunami that modern scientists traced directly back to Cascadia. That means it has now been well over 3 centuries since Cascadia last let go. And by studying the geological record, layers of sediment, drowned ghost forests of trees killed when the land dropped, and the oral histories of the region's indigenous peoples, scientists have determined that these great earthquakes strike Cascadia roughly every 500 years on average. Do the math, and you understand why they talk about this fault the way they do. It is loaded. It is far along in its cycle. And scientists estimate something like a 10 to 15% chance of a full-scale magnitude 9 Cascadia earthquake, striking within just the next 50 years. And here is something most people do not realize about how that loading happens. The fault is not simply sitting frozen and still while it waits. Deep below the locked zone, it moves constantly in silent, slow slip events, episodes where the deeper part of the fault creeps forward by a few centimeters over a period of weeks, roughly every 14 months, so slowly and quietly that no human ever feels it, detectable only by precise GPS instruments. But every one of those silent slips does something important. It transfers a little more stress up onto the shallow, locked part of the fault, the dangerous part. So the fault is genuinely, measurably moving all the time, quietly ratcheting the locked zone closer and closer to its breaking point. This is the giant turning over in its sleep, again and again, loading itself for the eventual release. It is not a sign that the big one is imminent, and then comes the fourth thing to expect, which is in some ways the longest and hardest, the aftermath. Because so much of the region's infrastructure crosses or sits near the fault, the disruption would not end when the shaking stopped. It would just be beginning. Emergency planners have warned that some coastal communities could be cut off entirely, isolated for weeks, as the bridges and highways connecting them to the rest of the region lie in ruins. Much of the Pacific. Northwest water is imported through aqueducts and pipelines that a great quake could sever, potentially cutting off water to major population centers for an extended period. Ports could be destroyed, airports damaged, fuel supplies disrupted. Restoring power, water, and transportation across the devastated region could take many months. The big one, in other words, is not just a violent few minutes. It is a prolonged regional emergency that could test the Pacific Northwest for a very long time after the ground finally goes still. This is exactly why the region runs large-scale disaster preparedness exercises, bringing together emergency agencies from across multiple states and Canada to rehearse the response to a full Cascadia rupture. Those exercises have surfaced sobering realities, that outside help could take days to reach the hardest hit coastal areas, that hospitals could be overwhelmed and some damaged beyond use, that the sheer number of people needing shelter, water, and medical care would strain every system at once. The scale is difficult to comprehend, a disaster striking a huge region all at the same moment, rather than one city at a time. But there's genuine hope in the fact that these exercises happen at all, because every time responders rehearse the scenario, every time a community maps its evacuation routes, every time a family builds its emergency kit, the region gets a little more ready, and the eventual death toll gets a little lower. Preparedness is not a guarantee against tragedy, but it is the single most powerful lever we have, and unlike the earthquake itself, it is entirely within our control. Now, I have given you a sobering picture, and I have done it honestly because you deserve the truth. But here's the genuinely empowering part, and it is the whole reason this video matters. This is one of the most survivable major disasters there is, if you prepare. Unlike many catastrophes, we know Cascadia is coming, we know roughly what it will do, and we have time, right now in the quiet years, to get ready. So here is exactly what to do. First, embrace the single most important rule for anyone near the coast. Long or strong, get. Gone. If you feel an earthquake that is either violently strong or a long rolling shake that lasts more than a minute, do not wait for a siren. Do not wait for an official alert. Do not go to look at the ocean. The instant the shaking stops enough for you to move, get to high ground on foot as fast as you can. That single piece of knowledge will save more lives on the coast than anything else. Know your evacuation route and your nearest high ground before you ever need them, and if you are ever visiting the coast, take 2 minutes to look at the tsunami evacuation signs. Second, prepare your home and your supplies. Secure your tall furniture, bookshelves, and water heater to the walls so they cannot fall on you. Keep sturdy shoes and a flashlight by your bed for the broken glass and darkness. And build an emergency kit. But here's the key for the Pacific Northwest specifically. Because you could be cut off from help for weeks. Do not just prepare for 3 days. Officials in the region often recommend being ready to be self-sufficient for 2 weeks or more. That means plenty of water and a way to purify more non-perishable food, medications, warmth, first aid, and a plan for sanitation. Build it up gradually over time. It is entirely manageable. Third, get connected to the warning systems and make a plan. Sign up for the Shake Alert Early Warning System, which uses sensors to detect the first waves of a quake and can give you precious seconds of warning before the shaking arrives. Enough time to drop, cover, and hold on. Practice that drill until it is instinct. And make a communication plan with your family for how you will find each other when the cell networks fail, because in a disaster this large, they will fail. Pick an out-of-area contact everyone can check in with, and a place to meet. Write it down, because in the chaos of a disaster, you will not remember phone numbers, and your phone may not work anyway. Let me leave you with the bigger thought, because I think Cascadia teaches something profound about how we face the things we cannot stop. This earthquake is coming. We cannot prevent it, we cannot predict the exact day, and its raw power is beyond anything human beings can control. That could be a story of pure dread, but it does not have to be, because the one thing that is entirely within our power is how ready we are when it arrives. The people of the Pacific Northwest have been handed something rare: advanced knowledge of a disaster, decades or more to prepare, and a clear understanding of exactly what to do. The tragedy of the big one will not be that it happened. That was always going to happen, written into the geology of the coast long before any of us were born. The tragedy would be if it caught us unprepared when we had every chance to be ready. So let this false, silent, ceaseless movement be your reminder. The giant is loaded, it is coming. And the most powerful thing any of us can do is to look it squarely in the eye, understand it, and prepare, turning a catastrophe that could destroy the Pacific Northwest into one that its people are ready to survive. We are going to keep tracking Cascadia and everything the scientists learn about it. So subscribe so you never miss an update, and drop that comment I asked for at the start. Are you in the Pacific Northwest? And are you prepared? Because behind every measurement of this fault are millions of real people living in the path of a giant, and getting ready is how we all survive it. Share this with someone you love who lives out there. It might be the most important thing you send them all year. Let us hit 5,000 likes on this one. Stay safe out there, know your high ground, look out for the people around you, and I will see you in the next one.